actually fired from my position when I was hired at my previous institution, one department, because I had this idea, and it was this idea of, I think that we can kind of identify some of these disparities in cognitive aging if, we basically, put forth this grant and say that we're going to go out into the communities that are hardest hit with the risk factors that we all know and accept, are associated with like these higher rates of disease. My supervisor was like, no, I actually have a better idea. Let's take your idea, but I have a group of people who I have a relationship with who, I think we can kind of put this forth with. So we ended up kind of going back and forth, and I basically said no. I was basically fired. And so what I did, because I wouldn't accept that either, because I knew that that was inappropriate, I looped in the chair of the department, and I kind of said, so here's the situation, but here's my solution to it. So I bought out my time so they couldn't fire me, because I went forth with my idea, put it through, and got basically my time protected by NIH under a supplement grant that I put out under somebody else's existing study, and it protected my time. And I made a home for myself in public health. But the comments that I got was that, I wasn't a good colleague. I wasn't a good collaborator. I was being really kind of like brash and not being a good scientist because I wasn't really thinking well. I didn't understand the literature. All of these very kind of like demeaning things that I just knew were wrong.
Yeah.
But I also just pushed back. And I don't think I even remember that moment feeling, intimidated. It was more just I was angry. Like, how dare they not, understand or believe, right, my ideas, or how can they not see the value here of what I'm trying to do? So I'm going to prove them wrong, what I kind of did. But yeah, so I think that was for me a very kind of like big moment of recognizing that sometimes those strengths that we might have are not always going to be valued or recognized.
Yeah. And that's part of what we want to tell stories about with this, where people might think, oh yeah, you have restorative, so everybody's just going to trust that you're going to use it in the way that they think you should use it, or what have you. I'm just so thankful you had a lot of the other strengths you had to deal with that too. The self-assurance, the belief to really push back, because there's so many people who might not push back in those situations. And then telling your story, though, hopefully will give, moved so many times in this call. So thank you all so far for moving me today.
Hey, like it's one thing that was really important for me that most people were right. Like not many people, right? Like it's so easy. And it was more prevalent, I think, for me, having been educated on the East Coast, right? Where I was typically one of the few women in the room, whether it was in classes, whether it was in labs, but I was certainly always the only. There were no Black students or Black trainees or, Black fellows. And I was certainly the only, Latina one. So I was always outnumbered, and I was always like just not kind of counted. So I kind of learned to navigate my spaces and, walk the walk. And there were a lot of great things that I learned from people. But when this happened, I remember thinking like, this would really like just crush somebody who who just had like that one moment of self-doubt.
Yeah.
I was like, no, I'm not gonna, no, I'm not going back. So that was like really important for me.
Yeah. And that's also why we need other people, right? We need advocates, we need coaches, people that, maybe you're not the person that has those strengths, but they can offer you the advice from someone who does, and maybe give you some insight how you can use your own strengths to navigate those things uniquely.